Hello, everyone. Welcome to the remainder of your Words Their Way, Chapter 3, Professional Development. Picking up where we left off on implementation, we're going to next talk about your Words Their Way launch and possible weekly routines. Just like in reading workshop and in writing workshop, you're going to want to give your kids time to learn how to be independent and make sure that the classroom protocol for that is set up so that when you're working with groups that you are capitalizing on that time and can focus on your group as opposed to students who might be unengaged. So within the Google Doc or Google folder that I'll share with you, I have a Words Their Way launch and weekly routines document that I will go to now. In this document, the first table you see here are some things that you will definitely want to include in your launch. There are probably other things that you can think of that would fit into this, so definitely take this and make it yours. So first you're going to want to teach the teacher-directed sort. Again, this is the sort that you initially use when students have a brand new set of words and you're instructing them on their new pattern or sound or meaning. And you're going to teach this to everybody. When you do that, you want to teach students how to talk about the sorts. So remember, sorts can be based on sound, pattern, or meaning. So you're going to want your kids to be able to think critically as they look at words. Probably automatically going to go to pattern, but don't forget to teach them that sometimes they're going to listen for sound, or sometimes they might sort by meaning of words. They need to say the word before they categorize it. Hearing that word out loud is really important for them, again, so that they can hear the sound in words, that phonological awareness, before they or as they look at the pattern. And they need to be able to state the generalization. Whether they're working with you or they're working with a partner, they need to know that ultimately the goal of that sort is for them to be able to say the generalization of my set of words is blah, 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 blah. You want to teach the weekly routines. That's something that you're going to have some freedom over in developing. And I'm going to give you a few examples of some weekly routines here in a second. But again, you're going to take that and make it your own. So within your weekly routine, after you teach that teacher-directed sort at the beginning of the week, you'll have some extension and follow-up routines for the remainder of the week, or 2 weeks if you decide to have a word sort go over the span of 2 weeks. That's going to be up to you. Okay, so here are some example extension routines that you can use. Definitely refer to this document. You might want to print it out, and you might also want to look at and read over these on pages 61 to 65 in the PD book. I'm not going to go over all of them in detail right now, because honestly, most of them are pretty simple and straightforward, and I don't think you need me to spell it out for you. But as you get into it, if you have any questions, just let me know. You will have students do repeated sorts, so they're basically just going to resort the words, just like they did with you in the introductory teacher sort. Remember, the purpose of that is to build the automaticity. Okay, we want kids to have that quick automaticity in spelling, reading, and writing. So if they ask why, that's going to be the answer. You want them to be able to see that pattern and be able to sort quickly. There's speed sorts. They can work in buddies. There's blind sorts. The writing sorts. That's a connection to writing. If you're wanting to make sure or help your kids make the connection between word study and writing, that might be one you take a look at. And then the blind writing sort. This is one that you'll want to consider. I would definitely have it in my weekly routine. It's good to use after students have sorted the words several times throughout the week. Maybe have it on Thursdays before if you have a Friday test, then have it on Thursday so that they're actually going to be practicing writing the words before their test, so they know which words and they need to study and whether they have the generalization down or not. Word hunts, that's application to reading. They're going to be looking for the patterns in their independent reading books, and just some other options here that you might take a look at. So again, that was really quick. So make sure you look at pages 61 through 65 or read over this and figure out which ones you're going to want to start with, because you're not going to want to start with a lot. Don't overwhelm your kids with having them do a ton of these up front. You can add more or switch them in and out as the year goes along. Okay, and then after students know the routine, put students in differentiated spelling stages based on the QSI, which is a spelling test that you gave, and begin the normal weekly routine. So you'll give that QSI at the beginning of the year. Don't feel like you have to get that graded like the next day, because again, you're going to have that launch period where you're going to have to teach kids how to do words their way, which will give you a few more days to get that QSI graded. Introduce student-centered sorts when students are ready. So maybe a few weeks into the year, a month into the year, maybe even 2 months into the year, you might introduce that. So again, take this launch, make it your own. These are just some things that are probably you're going to want to include. And then, again, whatever else you want to put in there. So up here I said teach weekly routines on number 3. So I have 2 possible weekly routines. These are totally just suggestions. It depends on what time you have in your schedule. It depends on your class, what you're comfortable with. So take this again, make it your own. But I wanted to give you a starting point. There's one thing that we are suggesting though, and that's that you do have a weekly test. One question that we had from the pilot was, how do we formatively assess kids, or how do we check that they're actually learning these words before we move them on to the next sort? That's why we're suggesting the weekly test. And keeping that simple is super important too. So one possible routine over the span of a week is to have 3 groups. The specialist that we work with in the pilot, she suggests not having any more than 3 groups within your class, because that's going to be hard to manage. And again, this is assuming that you keep your own kids, which there is huge benefits in that, because then you can, you know all of your students and what their abilities are, and then you can make the application to reading and writing much more easily than if you're switching within the grade level. So you would teach the lowest group on Monday, their introductory sort, the middle group on Tuesday, the highest group on Wednesday. And then you see the activities that they would go through and do throughout the week. On Monday, since you're not meeting with the middle group or highest group, you could have the middle group go ahead and sort the words independently to see what they come up with. And that could give you a starting point on Tuesday. And then with the high group, maybe have them do an activity with a previous sort, have them sort independently on Tuesday, and then they'll meet with you on Wednesday. So you're basically staggering when you're introducing that first sort to them. Again, if you find that this rotation does not give students enough time to learn the generalization from the sort, then you may extend the number of days in your rotation, meaning you could go 2 weeks and do a sort instead of 1 week before you start a new sort. Totally up to you. Let student evidence guide that decision. Option 2. So this is if you happen to have some extra time, or you can steal a little bit of time from different areas and have a big chunk of time on Monday and then less time on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. In the first one, each one of these, I didn't put the times down, but it's probably going to be about 20 minutes. And then option 2, you see that initially on Monday you would have 30 to 45 minutes, because you're going to be meeting with every single group to introduce that first sort on Monday. But then your subsequent days can be less time, just a quick 10 minutes. It might not even take 10 minutes, honestly, guys, once the students get these routines down. And then 15 minutes for your weekly test. So again, as I said, on Monday, you're going to introduce each group's new sorts to them, and then they're going to either do resorting or record the sort. or sort independently when they're not with you. Same thing as the first example. If this does not give you enough time or students enough time to learn the generalization from the sort, do not feel like you have to rush on to the next sort the next week. The goal obviously is for kids to learn the generalization, and so if they need more time, then give them more time. Okay, so I think that's all on that. Let's see what we have left. Let's see if I have time to get through. Okay, so the next couple minutes I'm going to talk through real fast because I have a 15-minute time limit on Screencast-O-Matic. So integration with reading and writing, that was something that we wanted to see more of within the pilot. So I wanted to highlight some areas where it can be integrated with reading and writing. Some of the different types of sorts that you can do are integrated with those. You have writing sorts related to writing, word hunts related to wording, draw and label, which are related to writing. So if you want to make sure that within your word study time, they make that connection to reading and writing, you can choose some of those sorts. Integrate into discussions in reading and writing. So as you see patterns you studied, maybe within your read aloud book, maybe within your mini lesson, very quickly you can highlight that pattern. Don't let it distract from the actual goal of the lesson, but it's fine. And certainly we want you to highlight those patterns that you see in the books that you guys read during reading workshop time. Apply generalizations when reading or spelling unknown words. So when working with kids and conferring, look for those patterns. Have kids get in the practice of looking for those patterns and highlighting those when they are reading. You can also incorporate them into word walls. And then during guided reading, have students find the pattern they are studying as your word study or as your phonics part of your lesson during guided reading. Principles of word study. This is super important. I considered putting it in this module, but really it's probably best that you just go to pages 86 and 87 and read and remind yourself about the principles of word study. It's super important that you understand these principles so that you can appropriately implement the program, knowing that it's different than spelling, and the way you see results will be different than what you saw in spelling. You're not going to see memorization of words every week. You're going to see over time students learning generalizations and becoming much more critical thinkers about the words that they encounter. So here are some pages that you can tab. Because I'm short on time, I'm not going to go through all these. Feel free to pause the video and you can tab these pages if you would like. So final thoughts. Launch is the key. We talked about that. No, this is different than spelling. Okay, you probably won't see immediate impact in your students until they get used to the process and get used to thinking about words critically and studying them. So give yourself time, give them time. You will see a difference as they learn this process. Trust the research-based process. Guys, word study is very research-based. We wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't research-based. So just trust that process. Show your enthusiasm. There's research on implementing program that the enthusiasm that the teacher shows has an effect on the students. So even if Words Their Way is not your favorite program in the world, fake it. Fake it with the kids. Show your excitement for Words Their Way. And they're going to have that same excitement and wonder and excitement about words as well. So read and refer to other chapters in the PD book. There are more chapters that goes deeper into each of the stages. Take a look at those. And ask questions. Ask questions of me. Don't hesitate to email me. Even when I'm on maternity leave, that's totally fine. Ask questions of each other, of your principals, and collaborate with each other. That's going to be key. Okay, and I believe that is it. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Make sure you're filling out the Q&A sheet and marking when you get these videos done. Thanks a lot, guys.